Well, the postman's just been, and the replacement Celeron processor for the Compaq machine, let's put it in focus, has arrived. So I'm going to give this a try. Okay, so I've taken the power supply out and I'm now down to the processor fan to remove, and then eventually I'll be putting this new processor in, and we shall see if it cures the problem. Okay, so the processor's back in the system now, and I've put all the case back together, power supply, etc. So let's give it a go. It's made the second reboot. Ooh, at least 2 more to go, mind. Yeah, I think we have a crash. Well, I'll give it a minute. Well, after a bit of fiddling around, several reboots again later, it looks like I might be approaching a safe mode, although, let's say, I was only in the final stages of the Windows 98 installation when it froze up, so it could well be that even though I'm in safe mode, it's still trying to finish off the installation. Well, there's nothing I can do about the screen. No, let's not reboot just yet. But yeah, this is reporting properly. You know, we've got our 60 odd meg of RAM, our Celeron processor. Yep. Yeah, everything's installed itself appropriately. So let's just see what happens. Okay, so you can see I've got a different power supply. I've taken the whole unit out of the case now. Changing the power supply has had remarkable success, but it's still not 100% sorted. So obviously you can see I have Windows 98 fully installed. This is just copying over a service patch from a USB drive. The problem I still have is one I had right near the beginning, which is if I go to reboot the screen, reboot the computer, sorry, all that happens is I get a black screen with a flashing cursor, and nothing works. I can't alt delete control, I can do nothing. I have to power off at the power supply and power it back on, and the Windows reboots. I'm not really sure what's going on there. I also noticed that if I shut down this computer, it doesn't appear that the ACPI, you know, the bit that automatically powers down the power supply for an ATX power supply, that doesn't seem to be working either. Now, I had that previously. So somebody rattled at me, oh, it will probably be a setting in BIOS somewhere. Unfortunately, there are no settings in BIOS for this machine for anything to do with the power supply, how it behaves, etc. So, in the meantime, I'm going to carry on installing drivers, etc. This is where the very first time round, this is where it all started going blue screens, etc. I'm beginning to think it was the power supply. Windows 98 unofficial Service pack 3. How much damage can that cause? Let's see. Installation complete. So this is where we might get this black screen and the dash line I'm on about, which may mean I have to power off at the mains and power back on, but cross fingers. Yeah, so we're just getting this black screen and a flashing cursor, and now, oh, now that's interestingly different. So just tapping my keyboard has given me the screen. However, it doesn't matter what I do with the keyboard, nothing is working. So I know that this Windows 98 second edition Windows is shutting down was a screen that was installed as part of that service patch. So I wonder, maybe it was working previously. The old shutdown screen wasn't being shown, and now it's given one. It can show it, but the actual process of rebooting isn't working. So, as I say, I'm having to switch off at the mains and switch back on. Right, so this is just a quick summary. I didn't video the last bits of me trying to put this machine back together because it was just a complete disaster. The reboot after the last bit of the video you've just seen just resulted in blue screens of death all the time. I didn't even get as far as installing any of the graphics or motherboard drivers. I've had difficulty finding those as it is, even though it's an Intel 810 chipset. It appears that the standard Intel 810 chipset drivers just crash the machine instantly anyway. So I've been searching online for the Compaq / HP soft packs, but it's really difficult to find. But if anybody has a link to the relevant service pack, soft pack number for the diagnostic discs, I'd appreciate put a comment below. You know, that's the obvious thing to do. But I've given up for now. So this is my third attempt to fix this machine. I guess there is one more thing to try, and that would be to flash the BIOS with a newer version. But I have no idea where I would find a new version of the BIOS for this machine. I think in earlier videos I'd called it a Compaq 5374. A little bit of research has told me that this is actually a Compaq 5446. It's all in the same family, it's all about the different processor specs, etc. Again, even though this isn't an ancient machine in terms of computer history, it appears that once HP took over Compaq, they basically just wiped everything, or made it particularly hard to find things online when you are not aware of the specific reference numbers or serial numbers of machines. It just makes life hard. I've looked at the case, however, and it is just a micro ATX case. Obviously it does have this unique USB game port connector at the front, which would make it a little bit difficult to connect to another micro ATX motherboard. But I think if I can't get any further than this, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out the motherboard in this case, and I'll try a different micro ATX motherboard combination. I've got a couple. I think I've got a Athlon 1800, which would probably run XP if I needed it to, but remember this is supposed to be a Windows 98 machine. and I think there's an early Pentium 4 somewhere around. The only problem I have with using those motherboards is that the relevant drivers might not be available for Windows 98, so even though I may fix the hardware, I may then have a problem with that I haven't got backwards compatible drivers. So yeah, not the greatest.